Hello, everyone. So, today I want to talk to you about burnout and why we get so stuck within this burnout and why sometimes it may feel like there is no way out. So, if you've been feeling like something isn't quite working for you anymore, or you know that something needs to change for you and you don't know how to get out, if you've been kind of feeling burnout, if you've been lacking in motivation, maybe you're irritable, maybe you're just, at the end of, of your capacity, this video going to be for you, where we're gonna talk a little bit about what causes that sense of stuckness and how to kind of get out. So we will be looking at the role of nervous system in all of that, and then I will give you some kind of steps out of that. So I'm Alexandra Brook. I'm an ecosomatic therapist, facilitator, and regenerative well-being advocate, and I guide people who are done with constant grind to reconnect to the wisdom of their body as a compass towards a more grounded, nourishing, and fulfilling life. And I have my own kind of experience of coming out of burnout, which is, what really qualifies me to talk about that. So, I used to work in a high tech environment where, even though I was really, really successful, eventually I didn't feel really fulfilled. I didn't really feel like the job was meaningful, which eventually kind of led to me burning out and then kind of getting out of that. So if you enjoying this kind of videos, do support me, give me a like or follow. And I'm also including today a little freebie for you, which is a PDF poster, which includes the body-led roadmap out of burnout and disconnection. So it is linked in the description below. If you want to kind of get it, it's there for you, totally for free. So let's get started. So, when we talk about burnout and stuckness, I think it's really important to talk about the role of the nervous system in all of that. So, when I talk about nervous system, I talk about that part of our nervous system that is responsible for our activation and our response to life, and in particular to kind of safety or threat. So, fight and flight response. So when we encounter situations that are potentially threatened to us, what happens? Our nervous system start to get kind of activated. We start to, our body get pumped with adrenaline. The energy kind of rises up, and we kind of getting ready for that fight or flight response, right? When just so we can kind of get out of the situation. And if we are not able to fight or flight, what often happens as a natural response that we then start to kind of freeze, and eventually it starts to lead to this kind of more collapsed states. Because we are not able to kind of do very much about the situation, we're not able to get away, we're not able to kind of fight. So our nervous system starts to kind of crash down a little bit. So of course, this is in extreme situation. But of course, in our society and our lives, with the demands of the kind of work and capitalism, we actually can get really stuck in those different states. So let me show you this thing called the window of capacity. And sometimes it is called the window of tolerance, but I feel like the term tolerance suggests that we should be tolerating things. And it's not about tolerating, it's about what we're capable of. So you can see that there is, and the nervous system, that kind of activation and then relaxation is actually really normal. This is what our bodies are designed to do as we kind of go through life, right? We respond and then we relax, we respond and then we relax. If we stay with these windows of capacity. But the problem is that, again, within our workplaces, quite often we have this prolonged state where we push to always kind of perform, to always kind of give our best, when we worried about keeping our jobs and our performance. So we actually can get really stuck in this beyond our capacity, which is where we kind of reach that survival state. So you can see, anxiety, restlessness, if you have problems sleeping and all those kind of things, when there is all of this energy that pushes beyond our capacity, we start to kind of see all these problems. And the problem is if we don't have the opportunity to deal with situations very well, and when we've been on this stress cycle for too long in that kind of hyper arousal survival, and there is no way for us to kind of get out of it because maybe we are stuck in the stressful job where we have a manager that is let's say a little unbalanced or put a lot of pressure on us. Our body then start to kind of go into this hypo state where it's kind of slowly start to shut down, and this is where we start to experience burnout, when our motivation start to go down, when we start to think like, why bother, where all the way up to this kind of survival where really we start to experience depression. We start to get really stuck and immobile almost, right? It's almost like we're running on this treadmill, but there is no way out of it, right? So we both like really exhausted, but there is just no way out for us, even when we try to rest, right? And again, I know it so well because I went through all of that, which is, why I have this kind of deeper understanding of it. And all of this is really important to understand because quite often when we think about our burnout, we think, oh, it's just that I've been working too hard, I just need to have a good rest. But actually, what's happening, we are going into this survival state, right? And the problem is that when we are in this survival state, when the nervous system kind of get activated, what happens, there is also physiological response in our body, right? The blood is kind of drawn away from our prefrontal cortex, from our digestive system. Our body is really kind of geared to response and to fight and flight. So all that blood is kind of going into our extremities, which means that when we are in situations of prolonged stress, actually our cognition is to some degree affected, right? Which means it's very difficult for us to make any decisions. And this is why in burnout, there may be all of this confusion, or there may be this sense of like, I need to change something, I need to get out, but I just don't know how, right? Again, because we are not able to think with the clarity that we can think when we are in those more relaxed states. And this is why it's just so difficult sometimes to get out of burnout and plan our kind of exit way, from our jobs or, anything. We just kind of at this end of the line and there is just no way out. So, what can we do about it in those situations? And I think first step actually is, rather than kind of trying to jump to changing something and to do something, is to first of all acknowledge and name where we are. Because I remember when I was already, with my burnout, it got so bad eventually that one day I woke up and I was like, there is no way I can even get out of bed, not to mention going to job. I was just done. And it was really, really scary moment, right? And yet, despite being so bad, there was this, I kept on saying to myself, oh, I have all this successful job, right? I have all the money that I want. I was working on a design team in a kind of tech industry. I had like a dream job in theory, right? It was this like a golden cage. So I kept saying to myself, oh, I shouldn't complain. I shouldn't complain. Other people have it worse than me. And it's only when I got to the point where I just couldn't face going to work that I realized like, oh shit, maybe something needs to be changed. Maybe actually I am struggling. So I think it's really important that we first of all acknowledge that, because once we acknowledge and name that then gives us opportunity to say, okay, maybe I really need to change something. And when we work with the nervous system and this kind of survival, our first step is to restore this sense of safety, actually. And we can do that by just small, consistent moments of, grounding, for example, or something that I really like to do is just kind of soothing my body. I find this is one of the key skills that I teach as a embodiment guide and as a therapist, is this kind of self-soothing where we give ourselves a little hug, maybe stroke our arms, and maybe rock a little bit, just as we will if we were soothing a little child that is upset, and we really have to reparent ourselves in that way and soothe ourselves, maybe feeling into the sitting bones on the chair, just gently rocking a little bit, just giving ourselves these opportunities, little by frequent opportunities for our nervous system to just calm down a little bit. And this is really our first step to stabilize our body and to start to get out of that survival a little bit. And it may be, it may take us some time, right? When we've been kind of running in this chronic stress and this chronic survival, it may take us a little bit of time to kind of guide and to kind of ground and soothe our body. That's really the first step, because that creates this kind of foundation for us then to kind of start to move into a different kind of direction. And one of the things that I think is really important within burnout, and a lot of problems in fact, is that we also, when we kind of under threat, and especially when we start to go into this kind of hypo kind of states and collapse and freeze, we also start to get disconnected from our bodies and our body's signals. So when I was reflecting about my own burnout and looking kind of back at what was happening, I noticed that it wasn't just that I was working myself. There was also things like, people pleasing, or like, this kind of constant push and not resting, even though my body was just like screaming at me, please stop, right? There was this constant overriding of myself, which resulted from me just being disconnected from the voice of my body. And this is, through so many things, through trauma, through also our cultural conditioning, because, we are taught that, like, oh, we should be the rational people, the mind over the body, right? The body is just this kind of a meat suit, that kind of we use to move around. But actually, it is about recognizing that our body is a living and wise organism, right? With its own intelligence. So once we start to soothe a little bit and restore a little bit of safety, actually, then our next step is to start to rebuild trust with our own body. And the problem is, if we've not been hearing our body for very long and hearing our emotions and sensations and, our intuitions, we may start to have a lot of that stuff accumulated internally. So it may feel very unsafe for us to even start looking internally, because we may be at the point where if we start to tune in into ourselves, we may just, everything may just come out flooding out of us. So the key thing is that we take it gently and slowly, this kind of reconnection with ourselves and our body, right? And we can do it through like checking within ourselves just a little bit. It's like we're dipping our toes in the water to check if it's warm enough, right? If you're going for a swim and you don't know if the sea gonna be cold, you just dip your toe to check, right? So this is how we kind of do it. We kind of dip our toes, to tune in internally, and then we see, okay, this is going on. We kind of get out a little bit from the body, and then in again and out again. So what I say when we say checking in internally is to check in and turn our attention internally to our body, to the sensations that are present in the body, which may be tension, which may be tiredness, it may be that anxiety, a lot of different things that we can feel within our body, and just slowly starting to explore that internal landscape within ourselves. And this is what's going to allow us to rebuild the relationship within our body and this kind of trust within our body. And again, we do that so that we can tap into that internal wisdom of the body, the wisdom of our body as a living, intelligent organism that often, a lot of times, know actually what's better for us rather than what our head keeps on telling us, because our head really gaslights us so much. And it is through tapping to that internal wisdom of the body when we start to gain a kind of a compass towards this more nourishing life. And we start to get an ally because, and this is again my personal experience, when we start to hear this internal wisdom and that kind of internal intuition and that internal voice, actually a lot of our decisions become much easier, right? We start to, that confusion, I find like I'm no longer confused about stuff, right? When something is happening, actually it's quite easy to me to turn inwardly, ask my body, okay, what's going on? What is the right decision, or what's the situation here? And it's much clearer for me what I need to be doing, right? Or what is kind of right thing for me to do. And just a kind of word of warning here, because through that I did eventually quit my job, because at some point my body told me like, we're not doing that anymore. I don't care. You're just gonna have to find something else to do. And while it was very difficult, because of course I was leaving my whole career behind, because I had this connection with my body, I knew, okay, I will be okay. I have that kind of wisdom now, access to all that wisdom now, and that inner guidance that I know I'll be fine, and I know I can kind of go through that. And that's not the same as of getting fed up and just handing in your notice on a whim. It's very different when you have access to that wisdom and you can do things from that place, right? And then, of course, the last kind of step that follows from that, which is kind of where I'm not right now, which is kind of rebuilding that life, your new life from that alignment, right? From that wisdom. That's rebuilding kind of how you're gonna do work. That's rebuilding, sometimes your relationships as well, because maybe you are leaving that people pleasing behind. So once we start to reconnect with that wisdom of the body, actually our whole life start to reorient around that. And it has its challenges, but again, what happens, you have that kind of inner wisdom and inner guide, so you start to slowly trust that you can deal with stuff. So it also gives you a little bit of confidence in life and in yourself, to know that you can make those changes and you can do things differently. So I hope that was helpful to you. Again, if you like this video, like or subscribe. Again, there is a free guide for you, link in the description if that's something you're interested in. Yeah, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you.